Call the meeting to order of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors, Tuesday, October 20th, 4:30 p.m. in the gallery room of Chatham Community Center in Chatham, Virginia. Roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Dudley?
Present.
Mr. Farmer?
Here.
Mr. Ingram?
Here.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrett?
Here.
Mr. Warren?
Yeah. Are the items to be added to the agenda for the work session?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I have two items. Discussion concerning the respective business or industry for the expansion of existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made that the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. Legal Authority, Virginia Code 2.2-371185, subject matter 4TT. Purpose: unannounced industries, economic development, discussions, update. Consultation with legal authority employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Legal authority, Virginia Code 2.2-371188, county broadband service. Purpose: legal consultation, discussion regarding potential related agreements with broadband provider.
Those to be added to closed session if the board so chooses.
Okay, we got a motion, do I have a second? We're on. Got a motion, and a second, any discussion on the motion? Just take to make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Ingram, seconded by Mr. Farmer. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, cast the vote. All votes have been cast, please record the vote. Motion carries unanimously. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, cast your vote, please. Please record the vote. Motion carries unanimously. For the citizens' convenience, all work sessions and committee meetings are now being recorded and can be viewed on the same YouTube location as the Board of Supervisors business meeting. Please remember that the board's work session is designed for internal board and county staff communication, discussion, and work. It is not a question and answer session with the audience. Accordingly, during the work session, no questions or comments from the audience will be entertained. Respectfully, any outburst or disorderly conduct from the audience will not be tolerated and may result in the offending person's removal from the work session. As a reminder, all county citizens and other appropriate parties, as designated by the board's bylaws, are permitted to make comments on the hearing of the citizens section of tonight's business meeting. We're down to number 5, presentation, and our department head spotlight tonight is our distinguished Sheriff Mike Taylor from the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, Mr. Smithman, thank you for the opportunity. I was noticing I have 15 minutes. I don't know if I can say all the good things about the Sheriff's Office in 15 minutes. We're going to do our best. This slide presentation, if you'll notice, in doing a little research, I found that the term sheriff, the position sheriff, is actually named in the Bible and is found in the book of Daniel. It seems that King Nebuchadnezzar was going to throw a little party for the image that he had designed and made, and so he invited a host of people, one being the sheriff and one being the treasurer. And I did a little research on the sheriff's role, and it seemed to be that the reason the sheriff was called was just in case there were any riots or insurrections at the king's party. The sheriff was designated to take care of that issue. It doesn't go into say whether the sheriff's duties were needed that night. It doesn't record that in the Bible, but it was interesting that it goes back to the Old Testament days of the name of sheriff. Now, when we talk about the word sheriff and what comes to our mind, of course, we're all familiar with Wyatt Earp and those individuals back in the day. And I did find what is claimed to be the only picture of Wyatt Earp that is actually wearing a sheriff's badge. And that was in 1876. And he was appointed sheriff in Ford County. We all know the history of Wyatt Earp and his day back in the day. If we move forward around to the 9th century, we find that the sheriff is designated as the oldest continuing non-military law enforcement entity in history. And in the early days, communities were divided into shires, or what we call today as a county. And within those shires, there was a person that they designated a reeve. So you can kind of follow the progression as we go. And so that the reeve was sort of an influential person. And the kings saw that and they said, well, we're going to put this to our advantage. And over the time, instead of a shire and a reeve, it became sheriff or shiree. And so that's how that, during the 9th century, how that progressed. And as you'll see, it followed through the king's time, but eventually as history moved west, and the notion of sheriff moved with that because they had to have police, they had to have some kind of police authority in the counties that were formed. You'll see that the first appointed sheriff, and they were appointed back in England and in those days, the first appointed sheriff in America was Captain William Stone. And he was appointed the sheriff in Northampton County. And later, the first elected sheriff was William Waters. And he was in that same community of Northampton. So the sheriff's offices in America, over a period of time, became less social as it was in the days of England. They had less influence as far as the kings were concerned, and they were more responsive to the people living here in America. Now, some of the duties that they had back in the early days was centered on court-related duties, security, warrants, protection of the citizens, maintaining the jail, and collecting taxes. Thank goodness today we don't have to collect taxes.
Would you like to?
We have a person that's designated to do the most of that. It's interesting to note that George Washington's, Augustine Washington, George Washington's father, was a sheriff of Westmoreland County in Virginia for a period of time. Of course, we all know the origin of our county, the name of our county, and the first sheriff here was Benjamin Lincoln, and he served from 1776 to 1769. As the nation expanded westward, significant parts of law enforcement continued to grow. And today in America, there are over 3,000 sheriff's officers across the country. And as far as the number of deputies and sheriffs across the nation, Virginia is ranked number 7 as having the most sheriffs and deputies anywhere across America, California being number 1. Now, a little bit about our sheriff's office is that we are an accredited agency. We're accredited through the LFC, also known as Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards. And just a little bit about that process, and we are accredited every 4 years. And a team of accreditation managers will come to our office, and we have to abide by 190 standards. We have to look at administration, operations, personnel, and training. And each one of those 4 groups has its own standards. Some of those standards are more, in some categories, less than others. Most all of the categories have at least 4 subsections. To give you an example, when a manager, accreditation manager may come in, they may see, let me see a report that reads where you met the standard of double locking a handcuff when you make an arrest. We have to produce that document where an officer has said, I made an arrest on so-and-so, and in that process, I've double locked the handcuffs. That's how particular they are in their methods. We never know what they're going to ask, what document they're going to look for. They're normally here for a week, and at the end of the week, they do not tell us whether we passed or whether we failed. They tell us that we'll see you in a few weeks, and we have to go before the board, and most of the time it's in Richmond somewhere, at a location that we have to meet, and we go before the board, and they tell us whether we have met the accreditation standards or not. So it's important. There's very few agencies in Virginia, sheriff's offices, that has this accreditation. This actually started under Sheriff Plasker and continues today. Your sheriff's office is one of 16 out of 123 that's classified as a full-service sheriff's office, meaning that we do the civil, the criminal, the courts, and the jails. Some sheriff's offices in Virginia just have the jail authority. Some just have civil process. But we are one of 16 of the 123 to do that. This is an interesting fact that you may not know, that if an indigent person dies in this county, it's a responsibility of the sheriff to take care of that burial. That's one of the things that say in a place like Arlington or the bigger cities, that is a big burden on that sheriff's office. We have to search out all of the last known family members if we can find any. There's a lot of background that we have to do. It's a sad time sometimes too, that you have maybe a homeless person or somebody who will not take care of their family. But that's part of the sheriff's office responsibilities. This is our mission statement. We provide professional law enforcement to the citizens of the county. We maintain law and order. We preserve the peace. We bring criminals to justice. And we ensure those who are incarcerated are treated in a fair and a responsible manner. We have 136 full-time employees, 107 full-time positions are reimbursed by the comp board. The board of supervisors supplements our salaries, and of the 130, supposed to be 136, 22 positions are full-time employees, which are locally funded by the board of supervisors. This year, our annual budget is a little over $12 million, and that's for the law enforcement and the civil process and the jail. This is our organizational structure, as you see. We abide by this, and this is just a breakdown of some of the bureaus and how our office operates. We have an executive administrative staff, a command staff that falls beneath that. We have a bureau of management that does our workman's comp, our insurance claims, and also our internal affairs investigations. We have general investigations, special investigations, the cyber investigations that stays busy all the time, and you can see the rest, how they break down, all the way down to the telecommunicators. How am I doing on time, Mr. Chairman?
You're good. You're doing pretty good.
The programs and partnerships that we work with daily, Crime Stoppers neighborhood watch programs. One of the programs that we're proud of is the inmate reentry program that involves numerous agencies throughout the county to make sure that if an inmate 90 days out from the time he is to be released, that he has met with the courts, they've made some type of payment schedule, because many times revocations are based on non-payment of fines. So we want them to understand how that process works and set up a payment schedule, something that the inmate can live with, and it's not a burden on them or their family. We make sure they have a go, they have a place to go, they have somebody to come and pick them up. So there's a lot of things, the Medicaid issue throughout the state. We make sure that they know how that program begins and how it ends. So we're very happy with that. Just recently, we incorporated tablets in our jail. So each inmate has a tablet that they can go to, they can read the law library. We met with a vendor today that will be able to do video conferences with the attorneys and also video conferencing with their family members so the family doesn't have to travel here on site in the jail because of the COVID. So we've got a lot of things going on in the correction side of the house. The Prison Rape Elimination Act, that's a federal program that we have been working on for probably 16 months. We're at a point now to have a pre-audit, and that is something that every jail facility and every prison across America has to abide by. We are now using drones. We have members, partners with the DEA, the FBI, the Marshal Service, the Virginia State Police, and the list goes on and on. I went back for about 18 months just to show you some stats on, this is not all of the calls we respond to, but the ones that I saw that we had that many calls involved in. And if you'll see, we stay pretty busy. You know, we talked to the board, I think last year about the alarm response. You can see that we had 922 business alarms, 1,365 residential alarms in a period of 18 months. That's a lot of alarms. And thankfully, most of those were false alarms. We had 90 residential burglaries. Come down, we investigated 396 narcotics violations. We investigated 223 deaths. And that could mean anything from a natural cause other than a hospice case. We do not respond to hospice cases because we know that beforehand. We're told by family members and physicians. But other than that, our deputies responded to 223 death investigations. One of the interesting things I want to point out to you, we responded to 767 emergency custody calls, and that's related to mental health issues. And each one of those, of course, has its own story. People in crisis, and in each one of those, you can anticipate that deputy to be tied up from 12 to 16 hours before they can release that person maybe to the hospital. They take custody of them, or that person is transferred to a mental health facility. So you see, that's a huge number of man hours involved in emergency custody orders. We booked 2,376 people in our jail in that period of time, and our civil process served in excess of 21,000 in-person civil process, meaning that paper had to be handed to that person named in that paper. So that meant that deputy had to make 1, 2, 3 trips to that residence just to serve that one paper. And when those papers come out stamped from the court, personal service, that's what the judge means. He wants personal service. So we try to accommodate. These were some goals that we were asked to identify in our last budget. And I'm very happy to say that with the exception of one out of the 7, all of those goals have been met and in process of being implemented. Well, I think the county is still working on the electronic timesheets. That's something that they've been working on for a while to try to work the bugs out. We're looking forward to that to get away from those paper timesheets. But the rest of those, the Prison Elimination Act, we've enhanced our abilities with our drone program by buying a new drone to help with missing persons. The county has been good to us about in-car computers. That's in process. Those were delivered this week. We have those now, and that process is going. I'd like to say that we're happy that our crime rates have reduced. Our goal was 4%, and up to this point, we're about 27% decrease in crime, which is a good thing for us in the county. We're happy about that. So let me just say this, and I ran some quick numbers, I don't know what time is in, but for those months that we had using the statistics, I thought it might be interesting to let you know that Friday was the busiest day of the week on the number of calls. We averaged 6,693 calls during that period of time, like Fridays. The least busiest day is Sunday. Thank goodness they take a rest. That was 5,072 calls. The most active time of the day was between 3 p.m. and 9 a.m. That's when we ran our most calls. We had a response time of 31 minutes, 18 minutes of that being travel time. So we have a huge county, as you know. And so I think the deputies do a good job in the response time, getting that safer. So with that, with any questions you might have, and anybody who would like to make a career change, I would be glad to take your application before I leave.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to say, I'm going to be the first one to speak. I had personally no idea of the number of incidents that have taken place and are taking place. I just want to say personally, I thank you all in the sheriff's department, you and the sheriff's staff, for the work that you do. And also, I'm just going to say this, as we have heard it in the media about defunding the police, that is absolutely a very irresponsible communication. So I just want to say from me and the community I represent.
Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Any other questions for the sheriff and board? Comments?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
I just want to know real quick, you said the sheriff turned sheriff, right?
Yes.
You know the actor Omar Sharif?
I do.
Okay, all the sheriffs are good looking as him? Anyway, that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
I ain't even comment after that, you can go on.
Mr. Palmer.
Just like Mr. Miller said, thank you, you and your staff. Exceptional job here handling out there. On the 31 minutes on the call response time, not of today, maybe not in 5 years, but long term, I was wondering if we had a strategy of having strategically placed, other offices or locations, north, south, east, or something, on the 29 corridor or something, that could just help. And I'm sure you think of that stuff all the time.
We do, and what we're hoping, Mr. Palmer, is that with the in-car computers, that the deputies can load their work, not have to leave their area, which will reduce their response time. That's one of the benefits from they can have all the information, just like they were sitting at the desk. They can have that information readily available inside the car.
Great. Anybody else? Sure.
I just want to thank Mike for the job that you guys do. We was in meetings last night and seeing some of the stuff that's coming down from Richmond, how they're tying your hands. I just thank you for everything that you do. And, if there's anything that we can't help with, let us know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
On that 31-minute time, that's an average.
Yes.
And just for education purposes, some of that time is because you've got deputies located in, let's call it 7 zones, I don't know how many zones. But if he gets a call and he's tied up in his zone, and then another call comes in his territory, one of the problems that runs that number up, is my understanding from some of the deputies, is they, all the other deputies might be tied up except for one, let's say you're down in Ringo, except the one that might be running the herd. So he's the next responder that's got to go. He's got to travel herd all the way to Ringo potentially. And that runs that average up considerably. So, I think when we look at the 31 minutes, we got to realize that probably doesn't happen very often. that it's truly 31 minutes. I know that sometimes it might be 45 is my point. And, you know, the experience I've had in my area in talking to the citizens is it's not anywhere near that long before they get something like that.
And one of the, in our computer-aided dispatch system, once that call comes in, it's timestamped. And then if, let's say if a priority, and our calls are listed from 1 to 9 priority. 1 being the worst, 9 being the least. So the dispatchers are tasked with, okay, which call do I give out next? So when that officer is assigned, it's time-stamped again that he's en route. And so just as you say, Mr. Warren, it may be a thing that you may be on a priority 4 call and a priority 9 come in, and a priority 1 come in. Those officers in the field have to make a judgment call. And so their times may change. They say, well, I'm going to take this call first. We had a shooting incident call this morning that turned out to be just somebody target practice, thank goodness. But when the call came in, the call came in as finding 2 subjects shot. Well, that's a priority, of course. And so everybody started heading in that direction. And it couldn't have been any further part of our county on the east side. Matter of fact, I was thinking mine was probably going to be in Halifax. But the good news is it was just some gentleman target practice. And so we understand that quick. But there again, we may have officers coming from the north side of the county heading in that direction. So it is, the geography plays a big part, and the type of call plays a big part in how those numbers come out.
And I think I can say this with the entire board, I appreciate what you all do and admire the dedication and commitment of all the deputies. Appreciate it very much.
So, and I travel around, let me say this too, and I travel around to different agencies, different parts of the state, serve on the Virginia Sheriff's Institute Board, and I hear some of the stories that they have about their council, their board members. And I'm so thankful that we have a working group here that recognizes the importance of law enforcement and supports law enforcement. You don't have that in every jurisdiction. And so I'm very thankful, especially in the last several months, how that the board has really supported the efforts of law enforcement, especially since the legislature's decided to do some of the things they want to do. So thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next up is another familiar face, Mr. J. Pratt from Pittsylvania.
Good afternoon. Like Mr. Warren mentioned that this is going to be on YouTube. I'm going to leave my mask on when I get in trouble. I think the Santa Fe to talk y'all through the mask. Yeah, we got to be taking this whole coronavirus stuff very seriously. This is actually the first and we may want to just keep doing it every other year. But it's really not holding us back any. And as evidence of that, I gave y'all a handout of just the things we have accomplished this year. So far, we've done 12 rural rustic projects, which is a new record for us since I've been here. We'd gotten behind with Hurricane Michael, but this year we were able to get it caught up. And we got 2 two that are listed in progress. I got a call yesterday that they finished up Mac Road yesterday, so that's another one done. And Robertson Road, they haven't started on it yet. The superintendent in that area, he tells me they'll start on it the week after next. And once they get started on it, it won't take them long to complete it. So I can say now that we're actually ahead of schedule as far as the 6-year plan that was in place. All the roads that were scheduled to be done this year were done, and all the roads that were scheduled to be next year have been done. And so next year, we're going to be starting on roads we'll be working on roads that were originally intended for 2022. And we should be able to add about 2 miles based on what was left over on these that we completed this year. So we will have the opportunity to move some forward. But we can talk about all that in the spring. But it's something to be thinking about anyway, what roads you'd like to see added. Some of the other projects we've worked on that were not unpaved road projects, we put a turn lane in at Twin Springs Elementary School. One of them I'm most proud of is we basically rebuilt a section of Route 626 Museville Road, just north of the Hammond area. There was a real sharp vertical curve in the road, and you couldn't see maybe 75 to 100 feet on the other side of that curve. And for those, it was also in a horizontal curve at the same time. So those big trucks topping that hill, they had to get in the center of the road, and they just couldn't see what was coming in the other direction. So I know there have been a lot of close calls there, but of course they were aware of it and drove slowly. They kind of creep over it, but this completely fixed that problem. So now they can see what's coming in the opposite direction when they go through that area. Other things we've got going on, the Lakeside Park Access Road in Perch. May actually finish that today. They're shooting tar and gravel on it today. If they don't finish that today, it'll be later this week. It'll be done, other than the guardrail. And so once that's totally done, we'll assign a route number to it, and that'll be a state road, so we'll push it when it snows and patch it and resurface it every 10 years. So. And the last one I've got on here, widening around 641 Ward Road. That one I had really planned to be doing that already. It keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. That's an issue with property owners, because on that road we just have a 30-foot prescriptive right of way. So basically anything we do 15 foot beyond the center of the road, we got to get property owner permission. And we want to take out a lot of the trees that are close to the edge of the road and that type of thing. But so we still haven't got property owner permission in the worst part of the road, but we're going to go ahead and start as soon as that contractor becomes available. We're going to start on the Eastham Road and head north. So it may be next year before we get that far in the S-curve. And the contractor that we're doing that for, Cruise Construction, they're actually working on a turn lane at the Seminole gas station on 29. That's not a VDOT funded project, but nonetheless, it's a neat project. It's being done by private funds with the gentleman who will do that up front of the tire repair shop. But once they're done with that, the next place they'll go will be 640 to begin that widening project. Just to let you know what we have next on the unpaved road list. Like I said, these were actually scheduled for 2022, but we'll be able to start them next year. Is the Toxic Store Road, Gandy Road, and the last piece of Toxic Road. This would be the piece at the far end that runs into the lake. And we should have an opportunity to bring some of these other ones forward or add a new one, whatever y'all choose to do. That's about all I have for you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Craddock. Any questions from Mr. Craddock? Questions or comments?
The Berry Hill project, 58 intersection going to be done? Yeah.
That's scheduled to be done, I think, December the 18th, I believe it was, sometime in the middle of December.
Yes, sir.
Good news, what it sounds like on terms of you being ahead of schedule. Kudos to you and your team.
Thank you.
I will say, I think Darby is on your list further down, but this year's Tosh's is the neighboring road to Darby.
Right.
And I got a lot of phone calls on that one, because I don't believe there's probably any residents that live on Tosh's. And I try to explain it to them that was a decision made 6 years ago. They want to know why did we prioritize those roads, that road versus them. I don't, we'll go my way through that conversation, but do you understand?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So right now, we've got Darby on here for 2024,
Right.
but,
It was just tough for them to see a neighboring road with very little to no residents.
well,
I know that's not your decision, though.
well, that Tyson Road, it is a cut-through road, and I think now that it's paved, I've noticed a lot more people use it than used to. It takes a mile and a half off your trip if you're heading toward Rocky Mountain. You can kind of cut the corner of that train. So I think that was a worthwhile project, even though there weren't a lot of people that live on the road itself, but it's a good cut-through.
I was impressed when I looked over it, that it actually eliminated 12 of the unpaved roads runs in 2020, so far in the 2020 project. And then you got 2 more, which I hope for the end of the year, I assume. So, Bob.
Hello, everyone. All right, so it's time to do our end of year financial report. So,
Flip the side, it's probably just turned on.
Now it's working. Okay. So the first slide is showing our supplemental allocations since 2017 to 2020. So you can see on the graph that we have been significantly decreasing the amount of extra money that we've been asking the state for every year. It's pretty normal for every locality to ask for a supplemental allocation because they only give a certain amount to each locality every year. It's pretty normal to ask for a little more, but we've decreased how much we've had to ask for consecutively over the last 4 years. So I think that shows how much we've been trying to be fiscally sound and responsible. And I kind of charted out all those numbers on the bottom so you can see how much they did. In 2017, we asked for almost $6 million extra. And this year we asked for 1.2, and we didn't even use all of that 1.2 we asked for. Some of it went back to the state. Because it's based off of, we have to go in and kind of give an estimate of what we think we might spend. So we always probably go a little bit higher just to make sure that we have enough. And they only allocate 75% of that to us. We have to ask for the additional 25 if we need it. We didn't even use all of the 75, so we have to ask for that 25%. So the next slide shows our total allocation versus our year-end totals from 2018 to 2020. So every year for our total allocation, I usually get with him and we sit down and kind of figure out what we spent last year, how much we think we're going to spend for the next year, and we come up with how much we need to ask for in our budget. So in 2018, we asked for $7.1 million. And we spent 6.1, and the next year we asked for that. For 2019, we asked for that same amount, but we decreased down to 5.5 for our total spending. So last year we only asked for $5 million, which we spent 5.2 at our year end this year, but we rolled over 7.4 so that we didn't go over our our total. So we've been steadily decreasing. This year, we didn't decrease as much as we have in years past, but I think we're starting to kind of hit that plateau where there's not a lot of room left to decrease anymore. But we're still looking at ways that we can find to do that. The next slide shows our total expenditures over the last 5 years. So in 2016 to 2017, we increased a lot. And then we started coming up with ways and what we can do to decrease our spending. So we've been successfully doing that over the last 3 years. So from 2017 to 2018, we decreased our spending $941,000. From 2018 to 2019, we decreased from $682,000. And then for 2019 to our year end at 2020, we decreased another $242,000. So like I said, it's getting smaller amounts every year, and we're gonna, I think, plateau, but we are still slowly saving more and more money. Of course, this year has been a crazy year with Corona and everything, and kind of for a little while we had a little bit of a lull where everyone was at home, staying home, but now I think that we're headed the other direction. The kids have been home for far too long. They're starting to integrate back into the schools. We're starting to see a lot of issues arise where services have not been taking place in the home or even in the community. They've been all virtually or over the phone, and that's just not as effective for our kids. Some providers say that it is, but personally, I don't think so. I think they need that connection and they need that one-on-one in the home and in the community. So we're starting to see some of the effects of that now, and I think we'll see the effects of that over the next year probably. Next is our education expenditures. You can see that we have been decreasing, well, over the years it's kind of went up and down, but we have decreased our spending for private day schools. Last year we had a total of 82 kids in private day school. This year we only had a total of 71, so that's 11 kids that we didn't send to private day. Some of that's probably due to the Victory Academy here in town, the STARS program that the school has. And of course, I think all the schools in the district and the people that are deciding those IEP meetings, because that's decided above, before it gets to CSA really. We don't really have a say in who goes to private day, but I think they're trying to be careful about making sure these kids can be held in the community. And we also do have some funding that can help keep some of these kids in their home schools and not have to go to private day schools or any other programs. So we try to use that money and be effective with it to try to keep some of those kids in those schools. So I think that's slowly decreasing. I think that's the same as really our total spending. We're only going to be able to drop a certain amount. There are some kids that are probably never going to come out of private day until they graduate. It's just the public school system cannot accommodate the needs that they have. So the last slide is just kind of going over the basics of what I was just saying, how much money we've saved over the last 3 fiscal years. And so in total, we've saved over $1.8 million, the county over $1.8 million in the last 3 fiscal years. My goal is to continue that and to keep trying to save money, but also make sure that we are serving our families and our kids effectively. We're always trying to come up with new strategies and ways that we can do that within the community, and we're definitely having to learn new things with the way that services are having to go, the way that kids are having to go to residential. Everything's kind of changing on us, so we're just trying to keep up with that and keep moving.
Any questions from Ms. Boston? Mr. Scares.
Just have a comment. I just want to let you know I appreciate, I've served on the CPMT board probably since 2017, and to see the hard work that you and your staff have done to cut costs, but also provide the care that the children need. I know everyone that's on that board are really concerned about the care for the children and stuff, so just make sure you pass on to your staff and you as well that how much us as a board appreciates the hard work you've done.
I will, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Davis.
How long, we've watched you how long? 3.5 years?
I think I took over as interim in 2016 or 17.
And you did step into a little bit of a transfer situation. It was a little bit out of line and a lot of things going on. So you had a big project, and we've watched you. And from my perspective, I'd say you've done an outstanding job through creativity, and you've done what we asked the 3 of us that are still here
that we ask of you, and you've accomplished that each year. And very impressed. Thank you as well to your staff as well. You're doing a wonderful job, young lady. Thank you.
Mr. Palmer.
This maybe towards Ms. Vanderhyde, are we still paying the state on the,
We had one payment.
one more payment? Okay. I know we only talk yearly on this, I just wanted to ask the question. Thank you. Great job, though. I do echo, I've been here for 3 years now and continuously just see the progress. You know, of course, the dollar is substantial, but if the care is maintaining, if not getting better, then that's the true definition of success for you guys. Thank you.
Anybody else? One thing I'll say is echo these gentlemen's comments, but she's being very modest because the state is also giving her some recognition for her efforts, and the Victory Academy, which you've been a part of getting started, and Mr. Hicks worked on it, and you know that was a really good decision for us and a good decision for the school system because it's been able to save funds. But I think they're also reaching out to you all that that's a model they may want to adopt. So I guess my question is, are you all working in conjunction with the school system to see how maybe we could expand that program or have a Victory Academy 2 somewhere and all, because it has had success. So both for the participants, but which is very important and probably the most important thing. But the other is it seems to be much more cost effective too. So.
I agree. I really can't speak to that a whole lot. I mean, I will definitely help out and be involved in any way that I can to assist in you know, spreading that and maybe having a second school, or because I think the Victory Academy now only serves up through 5th grade. So we don't have anything that addresses, you know, which is early intervention is kind of what it is, but we don't have anything that addresses any middle school or high school issues. And I don't want to speak to that because you know, the school kind of guides that. They're the ones that come up with that program, and I do know it was shared at the state level at our conference last year. Yeah, because we didn't have one this year. Last year it was shared at our conference statewide, and it went over very well. But yeah, I'm open to assisting in any way I can. If the school needs any help with anything I can do, I don't mind at all.
Mr. President, I appreciate you and Mr. Hicks having a conversation with Dr. Jones to see if that's in any of that thought process and all, because we've got to have children beyond the 5th grade that have needs, and see if that would be something that's feasible. Any other questions for Ms. Bonner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Animal Life Saving Crew radio system discussion. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. I'll kick this off, and Mr. Slimp, Mr. Hunt, and others have been involved, as well as Mr. Scarce and yourself. Some time ago, we were approached by the Danville Life Saving Crew about participating in a communications project. I think they call it Project 25. The Sheriff's Department benefits to some degree in this Life Saving Crew project because it improves connectivity and communication throughout the city limits, to which the sheriff frequently finds his deputies. The board, upon recommendation of the Finance Committee, approved a $175,000 contribution from our Coronavirus Relief Fund to be if it was matched by the City of Danville's equal contribution. We have learned shortly after our meeting in September that the city did not plan to participate in the crew's communication project. However, the crew has requested that we still make our contribution available. So we're seeking, the board's interest in participating without the city matching its contribution as it previously specified. Second, we received a draft contract, which is item 6BA on page 28 of your packet, which illustrated some intent of the crew that we had not previously understood. And that intent is that we own the equipment, not the crew. The equipment basically becomes part of our entire county infrastructure. In other words, we have 9 towers today. The crew would add a 10th tower to our 911 communication system. The crew owns that tower. We don't have to construct a tower, but the crew would like for us to own all of the equipment to their benefit, which is not necessarily a negative thing. However, the document that they produced for us on page 28 does not specify who pays for maintenance of that equipment, and we certainly do not believe the county taxpayers should be maintaining the crew's equipment, or augmenting it, or replacing it, or enhancing the number of units that they may desire in the future. So we're bringing forward this evening the crew's request for your direction, particularly your direction as to participating with your 175 that you previously authorized without the city's contribution, and 2, your preference and direction to the county attorney as to how to enter into agreement with the crew for the ongoing use and maintenance of this equipment.
In the maintenance, if I might jump in, Chris, Mr. Slimp extrapolated out of our Harris contract out with Harris. Annually, it's a little north of $18,000 to maintain the equipment on the tower, not the tower itself, just, we have an annual maintenance contract with Harris. So it's, what, $18,600 or something like that?
$18,168.
Well, $18,168.
Well, I was at the meeting along with Mr. Scares, and the original request was that the county would use COVID relief funds to the amount of $175,000. There was never any mention about any additional costs on maintenance or anything. So I'm disappointed that Danville chose not to participate. I do understand they're going to provide some radios that are valued at roughly $75,000, which is good, I guess. But I would not be supportive of anything that included any funding whatsoever beyond the $175,000 COVID relief funds that we agreed to. And I'm supportive of that because I do appreciate the Danville Life Saving Crew, but most of all, Sheriff Taylor has expressed a need for his deputies to have access to this tower and their need to communicate with inside the city, and I certainly want to support him. But an ongoing maintenance, I don't see it as feasible. We're using funds that are a one-time thing. So, I wouldn't be inclined to support the maintenance part of it. Any comments, questions?
Well, if the board desires to proceed in the way that the chairman just outlined, we would need a motion to authorize the contribution of $175,000 for Danville Life Saving Crew's Harris radio system, and that the county attorney architect an agreement that any future costs to the maintenance and upkeep of that system be the sole responsibility of the crew.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I second that motion.
Discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I think this is a pretty important addition to our Harris system, but I too am a little upset with finding out that we were going to be responsible for the maintenance costs. It's certainly less than what we were initially told. I think we were initially told $30,000 a year, so that's still, for me, that wasn't part of the original agreement or what we were briefed on. So I'd like to find some way to work this out with the life-saving crew. I think, again, it is an important project, and I hope we can make it work, but I think the city of Danville ought to be ponying up a little bit with this, because this is going to help the communication between all agencies. We've had a lot of incidents in river rescues and stuff where all the agencies that showed up could not talk to each other, and this project will help with that. And I'm a little upset with the city of Danville not wanting to help out in this endeavor, so I think we need to find another way to fund the maintenance.
Please cast your votes. All votes have been cast, please record votes. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Are there business meeting discussion items? I don't see any listed, Mr. Hunt.
There's not.
Can I get a motion that we go into closed session? Mr. Hunt, you gonna read us in?
Sure. Kevin, I might just jump in. I don't have, maybe I have all the additions in front of me somewhere. We're going into closed session tonight for legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A5, subject matter Project Impala, purpose unannounced industry economic development discussion update. We also are going to close session on the same legal authority for subject matter 4TT for unannounced industry economic development discussions updates. We also have 3 closed sessions under consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A8, subject matter Franklin County / Cool Branch Fire and EMS Service. Purpose, legal consultation regarding potential Franklin County Cool Branch Fire EMS agreement negotiations. Same legal authority for the second one. Subject matter, potential intergovernmental contract and agreement. Purpose, legal consultation / discussion regarding potential intergovernmental contract / agreement. And the final closed session matter is the same code section, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A8. Subject matter, county broadband service. Purpose, legal consultation / discussion regarding potential related agreement with broadband provider.
I make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please cast your votes. Please record the vote. It's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, we return to open session at 6:49 p.m. I will now certify closed session. Be it resolved that at the meeting of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors on October 20th, 2020, the board hereby certifies by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identifying the motion authorized the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any board member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the Act, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the board's minutes. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Farmer?
Yes.
Mr. Ingram?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Closed session is hereby certified.
Thank you.
There being no other business to come before the work session, I declare the meeting adjourned.